My name is Ed Ahlstrom, and I'm the product specialist for Casio's keyboard division. The purpose of this presentation is to give you some general information about Casio's keyboard line, to help educate you on some of the features, and ultimately to help the customer make the correct decision on which keyboard he or she would like to buy. We have some 35 or 40 keyboards in our product line at any given time. We can cut this number down for the consumer by making a couple of considerations, the first of which is price. Does a person want to spend $50 or $300 or $1,000? This determination alone can help narrow that 35 or 40 keyboards down to maybe 4 or 5, and then you can hone in on some features. Another consideration is key size. We have 3 different key sizes for most of our keyboards. This is called the micro-mini size key, and this is generally for the young children or beginners with very small hands. These are generally monophonic keyboards, meaning you can play one note at a time on these keyboards. That's micro-mini size. The next size up would be mini size, which are slightly larger than the micro-minis, but still a small size key, like you see before me here. This has become a very popular key size. People have some fear about playing the small keys, but you get used to it like anything else. If you're used to driving around in a Cadillac and then you have to get in a Volkswagen, well, you make the adjustment. You do the same thing when adjusting to small keys. Just kind of lift your hand up a bit, and the small keys can be gotten used to rather easily, despite any protestations the customer may have. We also make standard-sized piano keys. This is not to say these are 88-note keyboards like a regular piano would be, but the key size itself is piano size, so that's standard size keys. We have letter designations for our models that generally correspond, although not in every case, to the key size. The micro-mini size keyboards are generally a PT designation. The mini size keys, or the slightly larger ones, are generally an MT size designation. Although, like I say, there are a few exceptions to this rule, it is generally that way. In the case of CT models, they are always standard size keys, to date anyway. CT will designate piano size keys. Other letter designations we have in our product line will generally be about a particular type of keyboard. HT, for example, will designate a synthesizer with preset and programmable sounds, and also preset and programmable rhythms in most cases. SK will designate a sampling keyboard. We'll cover sampling in a later dedicated video for those types of keyboards. CPS will designate a piano type of keyboard with touch sensitivity that perhaps the home pianist might be a little more better acclimated to. In other words, the harder you hit a key, the louder the sound gets, and the more you back off and softer you hit a key, the lower the sound will be, just like a real piano. That's our CPS line, which is touch sensitive. CZ will designate a professional line synthesizer. And there are other letter designations, but those are the ones you'll basically need to know. PT, MT, and CT are generally size designations. Most of our keyboards have built-in speakers, so they are self-sufficient as far as generating sound goes. A very commonly asked question is, can I plug my keyboard into my home stereo system? The answer is yes. You will need a certain type of jack cord for this purpose. You will obviously need a cord to go from the back of the keyboard, which will either be a line out or a headphone jack. Either one is acceptable, coming from the back of the keyboard or even on the side of the keyboard in some cases. The other end of that cord will have to be plugged into the stereo amplifier, into some kind of an input, usually a auxiliary input or tuner input or tape input is also fine. There are 3 kinds of jacks that you're going to encounter for this purpose, and you'll have to check on exactly what type of jack the keyboard requires. One is called a mini plug. This can be a dual tip or a single tip, such as you see here. This is kind of a Walkman headphone type of jack, very commonly used. The second type would be an RCA plug, such as you see here. This is a very common jack for interfacing stereo components to one another, RCA plug. The third type that is generally found on our larger size keyboards is called a phone plug or a 1/4-inch jack. This is a jack such as you might find on the end of a standard guitar cable. So those are the 3 types of jacks you're going to find for the back of our keyboards. And then on the other end, into a stereo system, it will most likely be an RCA plug, although there are certain exceptions to that rule. You can check with a local electronics store to see what type of jack your stereo and your keyboard require. Our keyboards can also be plugged into standard guitar amplifiers, bass amplifiers, keyboard amplifiers. Any type of sound system will accept our keyboards. Also, most of our keyboards have headphone jacks, so they can be plugged in for private listening. Anytime you plug something into the headphone jack, it is going to cut out the internal speakers. So if you're running line-out jacks to your stereo, you'll still be hearing the internal speakers unless you dummy plug or plug a jack into the headphone jack, which will cut out the internal speakers. So yes, our keyboards can be plugged into any sound system you may happen to have at home. Many of our keyboards run on batteries as well as AC power. We use two types of batteries for running our keyboards. They're usually either AA batteries or D-size batteries. The type of battery and quantity of them will have to be determined on individual keyboards naturally. Subsequently, we use two types of AC adapters. One is called the AD1. This is a 7.5 volt adapter. The other, for the larger keyboards, is an AD5, alternately known as an AD5U. This is a 9 volt adapter. Now you have to exercise some care about which adapters you use. We strongly recommend using the Casio adapters, not necessarily because we make them, but because they are a certain milliamp rating that happens to power the keyboard efficiently. A lot of people buy a keyboard and then figure they can use what's called a universal adapter, which is an adapter that accommodates various voltages to power their keyboard. The only thing is, in the case of a 9 volt Casio keyboard, it will require 850 milliamps of power to power the keyboard. Most universal adapters only put out 600 or 650 milliamps, and consequently will not power the keyboard efficiently. Using a universal adapter with the keyboard is not providing enough power to it, and it's in effect running the keyboard with dead batteries or no batteries at all. You just won't be supplying enough power to the keyboard. So we strongly recommend using the Casio adapters, the AD1 or the AD5 or 5U, depending on the keyboard you happen to have. And now let's cover a very important aspect of selling any product, and that's the ability to demonstrate it. Anyone can demonstrate a Casio keyboard, and we're going to show you how to do that in just a moment. First, we want to tell you that all of our keyboards have a wide variety of sounds, instrumental sounds that will usually be found in a section marked tone. Also, many of our keyboards have built-in rhythms or drum beats that will usually be found in a section such as this. Then we come across a feature called automatic accompaniment, which we call the Casio chord method. This is designed so that the beginning player can create complete accompaniments or background patterns by using just one finger and create entire bass, chord, and rhythm accompaniments and play the background tracks to entire songs very, very easily. Now here's how you can demonstrate many of our Casio keyboards. In many instances there will be a section marked Casio chord. This section will have 3 positions, either a 3-way slider or 3 buttons marked off, fingered, and on. Now find this Casio chord section on your keyboard and move the slider or the buttons to the on position, Casio chord on. Then on these keyboards you'll want to find a button that says synchro. It might say synchro start or synchro/ending or synchro/drum fill or something, but as long as it says synchro, that's the button you want to find. So find on this keyboard the button that says synchro. Press it. A red LED will light up above the button. Now the keyboard is ready to be activated for auto accompaniment. One finger pressing one of the lower keys will give you a major chord, bass line, and an accompaniment like so. 2 fingers, the lowest one being the root note, will make the chord minor. 3 fingers will create a dominant 7th or 7th chord. And 4 fingers will create a minor 7th tonality. You can step through this procedure, and then to make it sound even a little better, you can switch rhythms while this procedure is going on. Go back to my rhythm section and select another drum beat. When I do that, perhaps select another chord pattern. Switch between the drum beats and different chords. And this way you can basically let the instrument demonstrate itself. Naturally, the right-hand half of the keyboard is active, so if you do know how to play keyboard a little bit, you can also play some melodies above your automatic chord progression. On many of our keyboards we have a feature called super drums. This keyboard happens to have it. The super drums feature enables you to take various parts of the drum set and vary the pattern they're playing. You'll notice the super drum section on this keyboard, I have sliders that correspond to each part of the drum set: bass drum, snare drum, hand claps, cymbals, and the bass and chord pattern. As I move the cymbal slider, for example, you'll notice the pattern the cymbal is playing changes. And I move it to a third position and it changes yet again. Now I'm going to move the snare drum slider. The snare drum plays a slightly different pattern. Any of the sliders can be moved in this fashion. Bass and chord slider will give me a different bass and chord pattern. And many of the keyboards we're starting to come around with have a feature called ending. If you press the ending button, it puts an automatic clean ending on your song for you. So that's the auto accompaniment feature on our keyboards. Any keyboards that have Casio chord, you can go through this procedure. Casio chord on, synchro button, and pressing one of the lower keys to demonstrate it yourself. Some of our keyboards make it even easier than that. There will be an automatic button that says demo right on it, and you can just press that button and the instrument will do all the work for you. We have various subgroups of keyboards that have different features. I just want to mention some of those to you. We have a group called ROMPAC keyboards. These keyboards take a small digital cassette and you insert it into the keyboard, and then the keyboard is able to play arrangements of songs for you. There are lights above the keyboards that can teach you how to play the melodies to these popular songs. Sampling keyboards incorporate this new digital technology called sampling, which enables you to record any sound and play it across the keyboard. We have a variety of keyboards with drum pads built onto them, so you can tap the drum sounds and play your own fills and solos right at the keyboard. We have some other keyboards that various accessories can be hooked up to access the drum sounds that reside in the keyboard. We have some more traditionally oriented keyboards that are touch sensitive, meaning the harder you hit the keys, the louder the sound will be, and the slower the key velocity, the lower the sound, like a real piano. And then we have a line of synthesizers, user-programmable instruments on which you can create your own sounds. And on many of these machines, you can also create your own rhythms as well. So after determining how much the customer wants to spend and the key size he or she is comfortable with, some of the other features you want to consider in making a decision are memory. There are different types of memory or recording within an instrument. Digital memory, which may take the form of real time or memory as you play, or step time, which involves typing in note values. Chord memory, which involves recording a sequence of automatic chords like we showed you before with the Casio chord method. There are several other types of memory that are involved. Also, there are an assortment of sounds on every keyboard. Make sure the customer is able to listen to these sounds and decide which keyboard sounds the best, which one suits their needs the best sonically. Some keyboards will also be equipped with the MIDI interface. This is a new technology which enables keyboards to interconnect, number one, with each other, and number two, with personal computers. So determine basically the needs, the price range of the keyboard, and encourage the customer to try out a wide variety of Casio keyboards and see which one is suitable. Other video presentations will follow on specific keyboards and specific features. This presentation was designed to give you a general overview of the Casio keyboard line. If you have any questions, please feel free to contact us at Casio. We can offer you support materials and answers to any specific questions you might have about the keyboards. Thank you for your interest in Casio keyboards.